Everton aren't looking so good, are they? No goals scored, 5 conceded, 2 games, 2 losses. Everton play Wolves tomorrow, and Wolves give them a decent account of themselves against Manchester United quite recently, as we know, at Old Trafford. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock, then it's Everton Wolves. Off the pitch, it's not too harmonious either, is it? Various aspects of life affecting Everton away from the field of play. On it, crisis? Well, not really. There's no crisis, says Sean Dyche.
I don't know every part of Everton's history, but I know enough about it. It's not always been plain sailing at this club down the years. You know, there's been many testing periods. So the club is always united. The fans have united with the team and got things done. That's what we're looking to do, and certainly build on that from last season. That's the first step, is to build on it. Now, we haven't started great. That's quite obvious, but you don't have a crisis after 2 games. You know, we're building something. It's going to take time, but we've got to rush it, of course. I know that. You don't get time in this game, but there's a lot of good things there. It's just that people overshadow it with all the noise.
And there is a lot of noise, and some of it's coming from us. We make no apology for it, because in May, Sean said, and we like Sean Dyche, we agreed on that, Simon.
Very much.
Like him very much, Martin, there's no doubt you do. But Dyche said to us in May, I never thought this was an easy fix, because it's not, far from it. There's a massive amount of work to be done. It's a big club, make no mistake, big history, big club, but we're not performing like a big club. We have to find a way of changing that. This is 2 seasons now. I've played my little part, but there's a massive amount of change to build to a new dawn, a new future, a bigger future, if you like. Well, Evertonians would like, thanks, but they're not seeing it.
No, but I think you've got to look at Sean Dyche and say, you know, is the club in capable hands? And I think it certainly is. I compared last year's matches. Lampard, 15 points from 20 matches. Sean Dyche, 21 points from 18 games. Jim, and he went in there, the first game, if you remember, beat Arsenal. We saw them beat Brentford, important win against Brighton, where they were quite magnificent. So when we watched the game at the weekend against Villa, it was kind of like almost astonishing to see the way that they capitulated as a group. The basic defending, not there. And I think actually Sean Dyche prides himself particularly on the mentality of his group and the players. And it was sadly lacking and missing. Calvert-Lewin, another horrific injury. I know that Simon has given him a little bit of stick, but I don't think there's any way you can come for this young man on this occasion.
True.
It was like a Popeye scene. His head was swelling so big.
Facial injury.
And I believe he's out again this weekend. So, yeah, you know, that doesn't get any better. But I do believe that Sean Dyche will get it right, Simon. It's just that the pressure now this weekend against Wolves, both teams...
Depends what right looks
having
like,
awful
Martin.
starts.
I mean, Sean might want to not help the narrative by telling people that he would have preferred to sub the entire team at half time. That might not help the narrative that there's a bigger problem in there. But the bottom line is it depends. Everton in previous incarnations, and Sean is right to say this has not been an unbumpy ride from over the years, but they've always tended to bounce back and get a little bit stronger. This feels like it's getting worse. They've gotten away with it twice in 2 seasons. Now, do I think Dyche will get them away from being relegated? Yes, I don't think they'll be relegated under Sean Dyche. But is that now where Everton are? Because I would imagine the Everton fans, and even Mashiri in his most obscure moments, would not have bought into the mentality that Everton's focus in life was to stay in the Premier League by the skin of their teeth. And it feels like that's where they are with this group of players. And I think Sean Dyche is their saviour, but saviour from getting relegated rather than their achiever of getting inside the top 10, pushing up the league.
It's consolidation period, isn't it?
Well,
really?
it's hanging on by the skin of your teeth period.
Yeah, well, it is. But, you know, that if you look at it, I mean, there's been the money that's been squandered at that football club over the years is not always the answer. But, you know, now they barely got money to buy a new striker. Iwobi now looks as if he's out, pulled a hamstring. They do need a freshening up in the squad. They need that competition, and it's not really there. It's going to be a grafting situation where this manager has to... And we saw him do this at Burnley for many years. It's almost looking like Burnley in terms of...
But at the moment, though, it's fair to say, and I would follow up Simon's point, Everton are not looking like the Everton we know and love. Everton can't go into a season and be fighting for survival in the final day, as they have been doing for the last 2.
You say that, Jim, but I think this is the reality of the situation they find themselves in, where they...
So is that what getting it right looks like?
Well, I think what Sean Dyche is saying is we're not really going to be able to add to the squad. We're going to have to knuckle down. We're going to have to improve where we were. The group weren't good enough last week. I hold my hand up for that. And it better start this weekend against Wolves. But the fans, I don't see this major signing coming in. In the background, they're building a brand new stadium. They've all the expense of that, Jim. It's a really difficult time for the club, and they need to stay in the Premier League and consolidate. And Sean Dyche, I believe, is the safest pair of hands for that to happen. But I don't see it as being an exciting period in their history right now. They're just going to have to graft and make sure they stay where they are.
And that's
So
the
we're sure of
balance.
Dyche, just not sure of the players.
Well, it's Dyche's job to turn the players into something better. He's had a period of time with these players, and some of these players, I mean, people don't like it. They don't like being people called out. But some of the defending on Saturday was an absolute shocker. And the particular centre-half, I don't need to name him because everyone knows who he is, isn't good enough to be in a Premier League side. But
But Mopé, if you look at Mopé the other end, he hasn't scored for a calendar year.
Yeah, we'll draw 0-0 then. But defend. You know, the basis of a team getting themselves into a situation where they start to believe in themselves is starting from the defensive unit being able to stop conceding goals.
What was worrying was that, I mean, this weekend I've been watching Brighton, shall we say, and they dictate, Jim. They really dictate how, when you're trying to play out from the back, they're saying, well, no, we're going to be in possession, not you. So they're going to go after you. The Everton players were looking at one another. They really were sure. Is Decore the trigger? Is it just a player that decides to go? Where are we staying? Are we going to sit on the halfway line?
Yeah.
Do the centre halves go all the way in after? There were so many question marks. They looked like they weren't drilled well enough.
So sort
And I'm
themselves
pretty
out.
certain that's been
For the
sorted
sake
out
of
on the
these
training
great
ground this
Everton
week.
fans.
I don't think it's a crisis but there's a whole raft of narratives being spun. You've got the situation around the financial circumstances involved, the potential investor. You've got the financial fair play governance. You've got the clear situation where they're being restricted from buying and selling players. And if they really want to open a can of problems on themselves and have a crisis, they might want to look about who's been funding their football club for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
That might be a real crisis. But
Okay.
right now, what they've got is a very difficult time. And I think Sean Dyche is the right person to bridge the gap, but it ain't going to set any heather on fire.
All right, it's up to the players to start sorting this thing out on the field of play.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.